Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I have some post-liberation Trump tariff polling to share with you. It's about as bad as you'd expect with his whole fiasco that we had this week. In fact, he is now underwater in every single poll in regard to his approval rating, and he's lost a ton of support among Gen Z voters. So these polls should really serve as a huge wake-up call to the Republican Party. So, first, check out these polling numbers on CNN.
How do Americans feel about these tariffs?
In January, it was south of 50%. It was only 46%. You look at it now, 54%. The vast majority believe that it will hurt the economy short term, north of 70%. But more than that, Trump is saying, stick with me, right? Over the long term, things will get better. But even there, a majority of folks believe over the long term that the tariffs will hurt the economy. So let's talk about the economic approval ratings, right, of Donald Trump. That was a strength of his in the first term. He came in with a net approval rating on the economy on the plus side, plus 6 points. Look at where it's fallen to now. Down all the way into the gutter, well south of minus 10 points. It is the worst that a president has ever been on the economy at this point in their term.
So that's not good for Donald Trump. Great for the rest of us. Next up, I have polling numbers from an Economist YouGov poll that was conducted right after he implemented these tariffs. So between April 8th and April 5th and April 8th. As I go through these numbers, also keep in mind these participants are pretty evenly split. So there were 31% Democrats, 33% Republicans, and 27% independents. Also, 52% of these people said they identify themselves as a MAGA Republican. It's not just your, run-of-the-mill Ronald Reagan Republican. And 31% of respondents in this poll voted for Kamala Harris, 32% voted for Trump, and 36% said, I didn't vote at all. So in regard to Trump's overall job performance, 51% disapprove, 43% approve. So he is way underwater. And yes, his approval numbers, I know a lot of people, I think so too. They are absurdly high for this level of incompetence that we're witnessing, but it is moving in the right direction. And, the further we get away from the Biden administration, the more people will start to blame him. So we just need to be patient a little bit longer. And the gap between those two figures, because that doesn't add up to 100%, obviously. So the gap between those two figures shows me there are still some persuadable voters who haven't yet made up their mind because, they always offer don't know or, too soon to tell, something like that. And then there are two things that are giving me hope. One is J.D. Vance's approval rating, 38%. He is at 51% unfavorable. So Vance is going to get the overspray of all of Trump's shit show, and he is not going to be able to wash that stench off of himself in 2028. The other hopeful stat showed up in the crosstabs. Right after Trump took office, he had a +5 approval rating with Gen Z voters, so people 30 and under. That was in this YouGov poll. He is now at -29 with that same demographic. So a 34% swing. That is crazy in this short period of time. I mean, it just shows what an epic failure he is when they allow him to just, you do you, Donald. You do whatever you want. We're not going to put any guardrails up. The other good sign was that the right track, wrong track numbers are moving in the wrong direction for him. So only 35% said the country's headed in the right direction. 54% said, no, we're on the wrong track. And then we also see, once again, Trump is underwater on almost every single issue in this poll, with the exception of immigration and crime. So that has been a theme, is if you guys have been following all the polling I've been sharing with you, that has been across the board. On jobs, and economy, he is at 41% approval, 51% disapproval. And again, that may sound like, oh, well, it's 41% still approve of, his jobs and economy policies. Understand, those were always his best issues. He was always above water when he was in his first term, when Biden was in office, up until the last couple months. He has been ahead. He has been above water on those issues. So this is a massive change. And then on inflation and prices, it is even worse. He has an only 36% approval rating on inflation and prices. That again was one of his best issues. He is now at 55% disapproval. In regard to the tariffs that he announced this week, again, only 36% approve, 52% of respondents disapprove, or I guess he announced them last week, implemented them this week, but 52% disapprove in the Economist YouGov poll. And it seems like, only his most staunch supporters agree with these mistakes that he's making. And then the answers to this next question, this should concern both parties, because YouGov asked, if the elections for Congress were held today, who would you vote for in the district where you live? 39% of respondents said that they would vote for the Democratic candidate, 36% the Republican candidate, and then 2% said some other candidate. 12% said, I'm not sure. So Democrats need to get on this. They need to widen that gap. It is way too close for what all is going on. And another 12% said, I'm just not going to vote. So again, I mean, we got to motivate more people. We have to focus on the economy. We have to focus on getting corruption out of the government. That should be the message that every single damn Democrat is talking about. The problem is so many of them are taking money from corporations. So until they stop doing that, even if they say it, it's going to ring hollow. It's going to be, considered false and fake. Anyway, it's a topic for another day. They also asked, how would you describe the current state of the American economy? A combined 24% said good or excellent. That's it. Only 4% said excellent. And that's for the people on the podcast who can't see the breakdown there. But anyway, 74% said either fair or poor. And the largest group said poor, 40%. So just unbelievable. You don't get that much agreement on anything, which tells you, yes, even some Republicans said that, no, things are not going good. YouGov also asked, overall, do you think the economy is getting better or worse? Only 21% said it's getting better. 19% said it's about the same. By far, largest group said, no, it's getting worse. 53%. They also asked a series of questions about the future in the country, economically speaking, economic conditions. Things like, in the next year, is there going to be a recession? Do you think that you'll be better off or worse off financially? Is inflation going to rise or fall? All of the answers across the board showed that the vast majority of Americans have a very negative outlook for the future. And again, this is the 5th through the 8th. So this was before the carnage this week. This was before the tariffs kicked in on the 9th and everything just started spiraling out of control. So the next polls are going to be horrific. And when they asked, who do you think is more responsible for the current state of the U.S. economy? 50% said Trump. They get it. They understand. This is his doing now. 32%, though, still said Biden, which is unbelievable. It's like, really? In what way? And then 13% said, I'm not sure. So, considering how this group is skewed, with how many MAGA Republicans, and I mean, the fact that you have so many independents involved, these answers were very unfavorable for Trump and the Republican Party. I also have stats from the latest morning consult poll. So this survey was a bit more positive towards Trump and Vance in regard to their favorability rating, but they are definitely still both trending downward. So 45% of respondents view Trump favorably and 53% unfavorably. For JD Vance, it was 42% favorability, 46% unfavorable. And when they asked about Trump's priorities, voters continue to feel he is focusing on the wrong issues. So by far, respondents want Trump focusing on lowering costs. 72% said that's what he should be focused on. That was the largest group. Out of all of these respondents, though, only 47% said, yeah, I think that's a top priority, which again is insanely high. I mean, it's obviously not his priority. He hasn't done anything to help bring down prices. And then the next biggest issue for voters was healthcare. 65% that said Trump should be focusing on that issue. Only 40% said, yeah, that's what he's doing, which again, so high, unreasonably high. I would love to speak with those 40% and ask how. What is he doing to focus on healthcare costs? He hasn't even brought it up, hasn't mentioned it a single time. Anyway, he is just wildly out of step with the American people on pretty much every issue, again, with the exception of immigration. I mean, only 24% said tariffs should be a top priority for him. And then 51% said, yeah, I think that's what he's focused on instead. And then, as we've seen with other polls, when they ask about Trump's handling of various issues, he's underwater on almost every policy, like I said, with the exception of immigration. So Trump's right track, wrong track numbers are also moving in the wrong direction in this poll. There was a separate morning consult poll that was conducted in April. 41% said the country's on the right track. 59% said, no, we're on the wrong track. And then the right track number was 49% in mid-March. So that is a big drop in just a few weeks. And once again, Trump's highest disapproval rating, 48%, was in regard to his handling of the economy. He has blown it. He is proving himself to be completely inept in regard to finances and the economy. I mean, we all knew this. The guy who filed for bankruptcy 6 times and literally bankrupted a casino, like the house always wins. How do you bankrupt a casino? You have to be next level ignorant to bankrupt a casino as the owner. Anyway, a company called Navigator Research, they also conducted polling after Trump's tariffs went in, or his announcement at least, and they had similar results. So as for Trump's job performance, 44% approve, 53% disapprove. I mean, this is like a running theme. It's like between 51, 53% with all of these polls. Those are substantial shifts in the wrong direction for Trump. Navigator did a poll in February, and it showed Trump with a 49% approval rating and 47% disapproval. So he was just in February, he was still above water. And when they asked about his handling of the economy, it was even worse. 42% said, yes, I approve of how he's handling the economy. 55% now say, nope, disapprove, doing a bad job. Again, he was always above water on that. Even Rasmussen, for those who don't know, that is a very right-leaning poll. Even they show Trump losing popularity. That this is a typically a MAGA-friendly pollster. So, I mean, not good if this is they're finding, they have Trump at a 47% approval, 51% disapproval. So if that's what they're saying, you know it's worse. Newsweek also has Trump underwater, 46% approve of him, 51% disapprove. Like I said, they're all within the same, like a couple points of each other. And here's why Republicans they're in a bit of a bind. They're in a bit of a sticky wicket, if you will. And I think you might. So when it comes to dealing with Donald Trump and Republican voters, MAGA voters especially, they really are caught between a rock, dumb as a rock, and a hard place, I guess you could say, because Morning Consult asked if congressional Republicans should act as a check and balance on Trump, or if they should go along with him, if they should go along with and support all of his priorities. A plurality to majority of all respondents want Republicans to check Trump's worst instincts. However, an overwhelming majority of their own voters, of Republican voters, want these congressional leaders or members of Congress to leave Trump alone, support whatever he does. So this puts them in a huge bind in the midterms, especially if they're running in a swing district. They have two choices. They can either cater to their base, or they do what the majority of voters want, but they can't do both. And the group that wants them to be a check and balance, that included many independent voters who now, as you guys know, determine the outcome of elections. So, I mean, they could pull the typical politician stuff and be like, oh, well, in the primary, I'm going to be full MAGA and I'm going to say I support Trump 100%. And then when I get to the general election, I'll just shift and hope nobody notices or calls me out for it. And I'll pretend that, oh, I'm going to be a check and balance on him. I'm going to do the right thing for the people. That's not going to work anymore. Everybody's wise to that shift. Everybody's wise to that game. So anyway, I will let you all know when I see more polling coming out. I have focus group information for you tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. It's really, really interesting. All right. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Please like, please share, and subscribe. Please donate if you can. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.